Great.
Carlos, I think everything is fine. I think we are online, right?
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth Applied Research Workshop of the 2026 academic year. So this workshop is organized by Fundación ARU and the Institute of Socioeconomic Research of the Bolivian Catholic University. On this occasion, the workshop is also co-organized by Save the Children and has the institutional support of the Bolivian Catholic University and the Hans Seidel Foundation. So the topic of the workshop is Youth Progress Index in Bolivia, the methodological construction at the departmental level in 2020-2024. So before we begin with the opening remarks, I would like to invite now to Natalia Perez, Director of Fundación ARU, to deliver the opening remarks.
Do you hear me well? Yes?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I guess Fernanda will give us some background on this project later. But for now, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this fourth Applied Research Workshop of 2026, better known as TIA in Spanish, Taller de Investigación Aplicada. So maybe you will hear this word, Professor Harmáček, more. I'm giving you the welcome on behalf of Fundación ARU and the Institute for Socioeconomic Research. We are very happy to have participants joining us from abroad. Thank you all. Thank you for taking the time for being part of this discussion today. Keeping in mind that many of us have other things in our head. I hope there are no big fans of Norway or Costa de Marfil here, since the match will begin soon. Putting this World Cup fever aside and getting down to business, I think it is very important to start by mentioning that one of the central challenges that policymakers, researchers, and practitioners face today is understanding how societies are progressing beyond traditional economic measures and indicators. While GDP growth remain important, they can miss the capture of other dimensions of well-being, opportunities, and quality of life. This is a conversation we already have with Fernanda a couple of months ago. This is where we talk about young people, since they are an important segment of society. It is especially relevant in a country such as Bolivia, where nearly 1/3 of the population is under the age of 30. I always say this, the opportunities available to young people today will significantly shape the country's future. This is why we are particularly pleased to present today this study on the construction of a Youth Progress Index for Bolivia at the departmental level. The study contributes to an increasingly important global conversation. How do we measure progress while placing the people and not only economic outputs at the center of the analysis? This index builds upon the broader framework of the Social Progress Index, which has become one of the most recognized multidimensional approaches to measuring societal well-being around the world. By focusing especially on youth outcomes, the index allows us to better understand the conditions that enable young people to develop their potential, access to opportunities, and fully participation in society. Beyond its methodological contribution, this work is particularly valuable because it provides a subnational perspective for us. Bolivia is a country characterized by significant territorial diversity, and national averages often hide important differences across regions. So generating comparable and rigorous indicators at the departmental level can help identify these disparities so we can inform policy decisions and promote evidence-based interventions. Today's workshop, today's TIA, also highlights the importance of investing in young researchers, and so we are pleased to welcome Marco Nina, economist and researcher affiliated both with ARU and ISEC, who will present this methodological development of this index. Besides, we are very honored to have Dr. Jaromír Harmáček. I hope I pronounced the name half decently. He will be our discussant today. At Fundación ARU and ISEC, we strongly believe that rigorous evidence is essential for improving public policies. So these workshops are designed precisely to create this kind of spaces. We hope today's discussion will not only contribute to methodological innovation, but also inspire new ways of understanding and improving the lives of young people throughout Bolivia. Thank you for joining us, and thank you very much, Dr. Harmáček, for being here with us and taking the time.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for your welcome remarks. So now we would like to introduce our guest for this afternoon. So our presenter today is Marco Nina. Marco is an economist from the Bolivian Catholic University with an experience in the application of quantitative methods in social, economic, and environmental research. He's currently a junior researcher at the Institute for Socioeconomic Research and also a research intern at Fundación ARU. His main interest areas are education, municipal analysis, and economic growth and development. And our invited discussant is the Professor Jaromír Harmáček, who is the Global Research Director at the Social Progress Imperative, the SPI, a global nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. The SPI developed the Social Progress Index, an applied tool for measuring societal well-being at national, regional, and municipal levels around the world. Jaromír's work at SPI focuses primarily on the measurement and analysis of social progress and its relationship with economic development and environmental sustainability. Alongside his work at SPI, Jaromír is an associate professor at the Department of Development and Environmental Studies at Black University Olomouc in the Czech Republic. So before continuing, I would like to briefly explain the structure of the workshop. We have divided this session in 4 parts. We will begin with the presentation of the document, which will last 25 minutes. I will let you know, Marco, 5 minutes before the end of the time. And this will be followed by 20 minutes of comments from our invited discussant. And after that, we will have around 10 minutes to discuss and to respond to those comments. And finally, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. So to begin, now we invite Marco to share this presentation.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Carlos, it says that the function is unable-sided, so you can check
I am
it.
giving.
Okay. So maybe I can start with a brief introduction. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Fernanda Wanderley, Dr. Jean-Paul Benavides, Carlos, and all the team from ESC and Save the Children. They have been wonderful for me. They have given me their open arms, all the support that I needed to make this index, and I'm very happy to share these preliminary results to everyone. So I hope you find it interesting. And okay, thank you,
You can
Carlos.
share it.
Yeah, if you just can confirm that you can see the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, so once I say this, I want to start again. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here at this event. For me, this opportunity to be in the fourth applied research workshop. And on this occasion, the Institute of Socioeconomic Research, with the support, like I said before, of Save the Children Bolivia, we would like to share with you the progress on one of the most recent projects, the first construction of the Youth Progress Index in Bolivia at the department level and covering in this first approximation the 2024 period. I said, in this session, we want to share with you the methodological process applied, the criteria and the decisions made, and give you a first look at some of the results we obtained in this process. Starting with the presentation, I want to make you know how the structure of this presentation is going to be. As you may see, we want to present the conceptual foundation of this index, followed by the presentation of the standard structure and its adaptation to the national context, explaining in this process the criteria for including indicators, the methodology applied, and the refinements considered given the data availability in Bolivia. After this, we will continue with the presentation of the results of the consistency test carried out, as well as the results obtained once the entire methodological process is complete. Finally, we highlight the main limitations and the next steps for this index. And also, I would like to say that, excuse me for English, so if you don't understand something, you can say it, so maybe I can go deep in that. Okay, so for the first point, what is the Youth Progress Index? Well, this project consists of developing an annual composite indicator for more than 169 countries, focus on measuring the main factors that have an impact on young people's lives. This initiative is led by Social Progress Imperative. We are also responsible for the Social Progress Index, and for this youth approximation, they are with support from the European Youth Forum. And for this index, being based on the Social Progress Index, they adopt its concept on what is understood by social progress, which is defined in its exact wording as social progress is the capacity of a society to meet the basic human needs of its citizens, to establish the building blocks that allow citizens and communities to enhance and sustain the quality of their lives, and to create the conditions for all individuals to reach their full potential. And why this is important? Because we need a definition to understand what social progress is. And given this definition, we want to make the construction of the Bolivian case based on this definition. So for the next slide, I want to show you what was the point and what was the criteria, the first two criteria that we applied for the Bolivian case. As you may see in the first box, we understand youth to the 18 to 28 years old in this case. The 18 age was selected by the law 548 in Bolivia is known as Código Niña, Niño y Adolescente, and the 28 limit was chosen with Ley 342, la Ley de la Juventud. And we cover all of these 9 departments with a 5-year panel, like I said, the 2024. And I'm going to go deeper in this, but in this first approximation, we consider 46 indicators included in our 3 dimensions. And what are these dimensions? So this is the general structure of the index. And as you can see, these 3 dimensions in turn each have 4 components. Basic human needs, foundation of well-being, and opportunity. Basic human needs has these 4 components: nutrition and medical care, water and sanitation, housing, and safety. Well-being is composed by basic education, information and communication, health, and environmental quality. And for last, opportunity has right and voice, freedom and choice, inclusive society, and advanced education. So, given these 3 dimensions and these 12 components, what we did for the Bolivian case. So for the first dimension, we have basic human needs, and you can see the indicators that we include in each one of these components. Nutrition and medical care has 4 indicators. The first one is food secure households, meaning that young people living in food secure households, and you are going to see a sign, right? Like you can see aquí is a positive sign, and therefore a youthful relapse into self-medication has a negative sign. I will explain this in the future slides, but just to make a quick approach, it's related to the directionality that we are hoping that the indicator has with the concept of social progress. Okay, so I don't want to discuss each one of these indicators, but I want to do a quick introduction of this and every indicator selected. Water and sanitation has 5 indicators. The first one is young people to access to improved water sources, and the four other indicators are indicators related to the APS indicators, that in Bolivia is la Autoridad de Control Social del Agua. Now, in housing, we also have 5 indicators. And something that I forget to say is all of these indicators, as you can see in this upper part, were selected from the household survey, from the DAPE, APS, and the OPCD. And for safety, we also have 3 indicators. Now, for foundations of well-being, again, 4 components. The component of basic education has 4 indicators. Secondary school completion rate. The second is a gap, or yeah, it's a gap between urban and rural areas related to the first indicator. The third one is a young woman with completed primary education, and the fourth one is literacy rate. We also have information and communication with 3 indicators, health with 4, and environmental quality that also has 4 indicators. Now, for the last dimension, that is opportunity, in this case, we have 14 indicators. And again, the main sources were household survey, Red Unitas, OPD, SNIS, CUV, among others. Rights and Voice has 4 indicators, Freedom and Choice 3, Inclusive Society has 4, and Advanced Education has 3 indicators. Now, In this process, we apply the selection criteria established by social progress imperative, by their methodology. So mainly, there are 6 steps that we have to follow to make sure that these indicators are appropriate to the Youth Progress Index. And also for the Bolivian case, we included a step number 7 that is for the cases that the indicator is based on the household survey. So I want to read quickly each one of these steps. The first one is like they mentioned, we don't want to include indicators that are economic related. We want to measure a social or environmental concept. The second one is that we focus on outcomes rather than inputs or resources. The third one is that we want to search data or indicators that come from known or publicly accessible data sources. 4, the recent data has to be the most recent possible. The fifth point is that we have to make a coverage of these 9 departments in these 5 years. So we don't want to have an indicator that has maybe a coverage of 5 departments, or maybe just 3 or 4 years, because that will force us to make some estimations for the missing values, and maybe to reduce the precision of these values. The step number 6 is that, okay, we want to measure a concept of social progress specifically for youth, but given the data availability and all these difficulties that we have, it's pretty hard to find a specific data to 18 to 28 age. So we are going to make some proxies, or maybe go as far as near as we can to this threshold. And like we said, the step number 7 is that, okay, we are using the household survey, so we are going to calculate the coefficient of variation to ensure that the indicator has some static representation for the department and the year calculated. We follow the 20% threshold established by Instituto Nacional de Estadística, so we can ensure that following this instruction, the indicator has a good representativity. Okay, so what's the methodology established for this point? The data and indicators were collected and constructed with the selection criteria that we said. So this process represents the first step of the methodology pipeline. It consists of steps, which are, like we said, data collection. Once we have our data set fully developed, we need to analyze which are the missing values. Once we treat these missing values, we go and implement a treatment of outliers. Then we have to analyze the directionality of all these indicators and make some standardization. You can see there the formula is like just apply the mean, the value observed, and the standard deviation of each indicator. The sixth step is implementing the principal component analysis, so we can obtain the specific weight of each indicator given a component. Step number 7 consists, okay, we have the component value, that is that multiplying the weight obtained by the standardized value of each indicators within a component, and then this component value is going to be escalated to a min-max approximation, so we can have a component score in a range of 0 to 100. And finally, we need to make a sum aggregation. Okay, we have a component score, so what is going to be the dimension score? And given this three-dimensional score, what is going to be the score for this index? And it's just an arithmetic mean. 4 components is going to be divided by 4, the result of the dimension, and the index is going to be the result of a division by 3. Okay, so explaining a little bit more about the first 2 steps is the missing values and the outlier treatment. Like we said, we are following the criteria established by Instituto Nacional de Estadística. So once we calculated an indicator that comes from these sources, we calculate the coefficient of variation. If this coefficient of variation goes more than 20%, we treat this value as a missing value. Okay, and this missing value is going to receive the treatment as the same way as the other indicators. And how we do this treatment? Like you can say, we treat these points if they are at the beginning of this series of inner of this series, like maybe interior gaps, like you can read there. We applied a linear interpolation. But if it's in the last year or the first year, we apply a linear regression imputation. Here I want to mention one case that, as you can see, we have the housing indicators. All of these indicators that in this component don't have values for the 2020 year, but we can estimate it for the 2019 year. So we did this to make a facilitation of the interior gap procedure. So we have the value of 19 and we have the value of 2021. So we apply a linear interpolation to have a little bit more smooth series that if we apply a linear regression in these years. Okay, so the third step is an outlier treatment, and it's based mainly on the skewness greater than 2 and a skewness lower than 1.5 and equals or lower than 2. And how we treat these values? Okay, if the skewness is greater than 2, we apply a square root transformation. In other case, we apply a truncate of 1 of the first or 99 percentile. As we are going to talk more about of this, given these 45 data points that we have, applying this second treatment is not so good because the data set is very reduced. So if you truncate the database at the first percentile, it's not going to be very different. So that's something that we have to have in mind. Okay, for the standardization, weighting and aggregation, it's pretty easy. Yeah, as you were able to see in the previous slide, we have assigned in each of these indicators. So we say, imagine that an indicator it's bad for the concept of social progress. Maybe I can put the violence rate. So we hope that this indicator has a negative sign or negative correlation with the concept. So what we have to do, we have to do an inversion of the directionality to see if with this inversion, all of the set of indicators within a component now has the same direction. Okay, maybe I can say this. Okay, we have 3 indicators, 2 positives with the concept. Okay, we don't have the inversion. 1 negative, we have to do this inversion multiplying by -1. And now we have to analyze to have now a positive correlation. Okay, so the 5 step is a zeta score standardization. Like I said, it's the observed value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. The 6th step is obtaining these weights. Once we have this standardized value, we introduce all of these indicators into a PCA estimation, and we obtain the eigenvalues, and then we obtain the normalized weights. Once we have the standardized value of each indicator and its weight, we have to calculate the component value. It's nothing more than the multiplication of a weighted sum from the weight with the standardized value. And this is the raw value, so we have to make it interpretable. So we applied a min-max approximation, like you can see in the formula there. And this component score is going to be included for the dimension score, that is an arithmetic mean, and the same for the index score. And now for the step number 6 and step number 7, we have to apply 2 consistency tests. The first one is the Cronbach alpha, and the second one is the Kaysen-Meyer-Olkin test. The first allows to analyze the internal consistency of each indicator, of each component, examining whether all the indicators considered are related, whether they have the same expected directionality, and whether they measure the same concept. And the KMO, on the other hand, analyzes the suitability of the data for the subsequent principal component analysis, considering whether they have sufficient strength to be grouped into common dimensions. So we have the threshold established by the SPI application in the case of Mexico in 2025 that says that a value of a Cronbach's alpha value has to be greater or equal to 0.65, and the KMO has to be greater or equal to 0.5. Now, in each component, you can see that we have a great internal consistency, but
Marco,
in
you have
nutrition and
5
medical
minutes.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. But in nutrition, safety, and health components, we have some values that are below this threshold. So we have to make the interpretation very carefully. Now I want to make a quick presentation of the weights obtained. All of these weights aggregated sum 1 in each one of the components. These are the weights obtained by into the basic human needs dimension. These ones are the weights obtained in the foundations of well-being and all of these components. And for opportunity, we have these weights obtained in each one of these components. Sorry if I go a little bit faster, but I think that this is the most interesting part. So, given all this methodological process, I want to introduce you to I want to present you these main results. These are the component scores. As you can see, in each one of these years, we have the values for the 9 departments, and we can see an evolution, a negative evolution in the case of nutrition and basic and medical care, for water and for agua y saneamiento, the same case. All of these results are preliminary. Professor Jaromír gave us some feedback, so we want to make some adjustments, and maybe we are going to have a little bit variations, but I think that the trend is going to keep in the same way. So you can see this is the first part of the basic needs. This is the second part, where we have housing and safety. This is the component scores. And we can see some patterns that are going to be more explored on our future reports. For foundation of well-being, we have the results for basic education, information and communication, 5 years or 9 departments. And for this part, we have health and environmental quality. For environmental quality, I want to make some precision that our indicators include, it's more related to contamination, pollution, and green areas. So Oruro and Potosí don't have enough data to calculate. We are going to seek for more indicators that can include these departments, but preliminary results shows that we don't have a specific value for these 2 departments. Now, in opportunity, you can see the same for rights and voice, freedom and choice. Again, the results hope all of you can interpret it better than me. It's incredible results that we have here. And for opportunity part 2, we have inclusive society and advanced education. Okay, once we have this quick review, I want to end this presentation with some of the principal limitations, and I took the principal next steps that we want to follow in the next steps. Well, the first of these are the age disaggregation. Like I said before, it's very difficult to find data that is specifically calculated for the 18 to 28 range. So maybe with a deeper search, or maybe talking with some institutions, we can find data that is more related to this age range. The second one is the annual series constraint. Okay, so we want to use census or maybe ETSA, but we can't because they are related in, for example, the census 2024, 2012, and ETSA the same, 2023 and 7 years before. So we need data that is periodically updated. And we have this constraint that don't allow us to introduce this data in the index. The tier 1 is the administrative record bias. And that is that, okay, we are using data from SNIS, Simon, and these other sources. But they mentioned that, okay, they are cases reported, but it's not a general view of the state of the youth, like maybe we can obtain from a household survey or census or ETSA. So that is one of the main constraints of this application. The tier 1 is the environmental indicators. Repeating, is the same case for Oruro and Potosí. We are going to search 1 or 2 indicators that can include these departments. Following is the geographic coverage, and is that, okay, we have a departmental score, but we don't want to make a invisibilization of the rural areas or non-capital cities. So we want to follow up to make the interpretation specific for all the departments. And the last one is the normative mention, but we have a normalization of each indicators. And the social progress imperative methodology call this the utopia and dystopia scenarios. So, for example, if an indicator has a expected value, a good expected value, okay, there's going to be the utopia. But if we have no expected result, it's going to be called the dystopia. But for this application, we just wanted to take the the max observed value and the minimum observed value to make this calculation. So I hope you understand me well, and thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Marco, for your excellent presentation. And now I would like to invite Professor Harmáček to share his comments on this document. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And thank you, Marco, for the nice presentation, very clear. And thank you all for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here. I was truly delighted to have the opportunity to review the methodology process and the report of the Youth Progress Index Bolivia, which I will be shortening to YPI Bolivia. In the social progress imperative, I have been involved in the creation of many subnational indices. So I actually feel for you, Marco, and all the other co-authors of the index, because I know how difficult, time demanding, and sometimes even frustrating the process can be. So before I start with going through my review, I wanted to thank you, Marco, and all co-authors of the index for your work, because I think that it has been an excellent effort. With that being said, I will share some slides with you, which will basically cover my review, in which I try to be as rigorous, but hopefully constructive as possible, in order the report could be improved, and also with having a possible future academic publication in mind, because this was something that we, in some of the calls that we had together, had in mind. So hopefully the result of all this effort will not only be that the index is published and the report is published, but also that there are some academic outputs as well. So I will now try to share my screen, and I hope it's going to work. And so I hope you can now see my slides.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So yeah, I think Carlos said that I would have 20 minutes to cover the review. I may have need a bit less, but let's see. So first of all, what was the purpose of the review? So I focused on reviewing the methodology work on the adaptation of the global Youth Progress Index, or even more general social progress index methodology, to Bolivia's departments over 2020 to 2024, so 5 years, 9 departments. I want to say at the beginning that my review is based on the methodology report only. I haven't seen the index scores, which, as we now know, are still preliminary. I haven't seen any departmental rankings, but the only thing that I actually read and review is the methodology report. And as I already said at the beginning of my presentation, is that the aim of the review was to provide a support to the possible methodological refinement, and also with that academic support in mind. So maybe there's going to be a future academic publication. So the overall assessment of the work, if I may call it this way, would be that I think that the report represents very promising application of the YPI framework to Bolivia's department. I think that we've seen that there is a clear multidimensional structure derived from the global applications, from the global YPI, from the global SPI. So the 3 dimensions, 12 components, that's clear. The 12 components are filled with individual indicators. And if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 to 5 indicators per component, which is a good number for subnational applications. And altogether, the index has 46 indicators, which again is a good number for a subnational application of any global framework, YPI or SPI. I think that in terms of the individual indicators, we can say that basically all of them measure social or environmental outcomes, and as possible, they are as much as possible they are focused on measuring the outcomes of youth. I also want to say that with this departmental focus, it is possible to provide evidence or numbers for possible policy discussions, which is also something that I think this entire effort was focused on. And to actually provide the overall assessment in one sentence, I think it's been a great effort. And what needs to be done in some parts of the report is maybe strengthen the methodological transparency and maybe add also some robustness checks before the final publication. And these robustness checks, I want to say, are maybe even more important for the possible academic outputs than for the report itself. In terms of scope, definition of youth, and indicator relevance, so we've seen many of these things already in Marco's presentation. So I think that as far as I can actually say this, that the youth is defined based on the Bolivian legal context as 18 to 28, which is reasonable. Of course, some indicators use broader or different age categories. I think some are even focused on general population. However, this is inevitable. Even with the global YPI framework, this is exactly the case. But maybe in this context, what I would recommend for the report is clearly distinguish what are the youth-specific indicators, what are the indicators based on approximate age groups, and what are the indicators that focus on the general population. This is exactly what the global YPI methodology report does. And if somebody wants to know what indicators are youth relevant, it can be directly seen from the report. So I think that this would make the framework actually even more transparent. It is already transparent, but this would make it even more transparent. In terms of indicator selection and comparability, I think, and I've already said that the indicators are selected well. They generally follow the YPI or SPI general principles. They measure social or environmental, mostly outcomes. There are only some exceptions, but they have full departmental coverage. They are, as much as they can be, policy relevant, and again, the relevance to youth is also there. In terms of my recommendations, I think that some indicators may need further justification, and it was already said in Marco's presentation that, for example, the indicators based on administrative records, then they may reflect not only the prevalence that we want to see, but also maybe reporting on institutional capacity. And also some other indicators such as the university campuses or accredited programs, maybe closer to a little bit inputty or service availability indicators. Again, I'm not saying that these indicators should not be included. I know how difficult it is to find indicators and data in subnational contexts, but maybe the justification or better communication in the report should be there. In some indicators, I think those were the indicators included in rights and voice and some other components of the opportunity dimensions, such as the violations of democratic institutions or violations of civil liberties. I was wondering whether they should have been recalculated to populations of those departments. I don't have a clear idea on this, clear opinion on this. but this is definitely something that could be discussed, because as far as it was clear to me, those were like counts of those violations. So for bigger, smaller departments, I don't know how these counts could be comparable, but maybe this is something that we can discuss. And also, there was this one indicator: university campuses and non-capital municipalities that at least in the report that I read, received a negative orientation. So maybe again, this is something that we can cover in the discussion, why this indicator is thought to have a negative orientation. By a negative orientation, what I mean is that higher values of these indicators are actually worse, vice versa. In terms of missing data, imputations, and the coefficient of variation procedure, so I think that the imputation methods are sound. Interpolation is used for gaps between observations. This is completely okay. Regression imputations are used to fill the gaps at the beginning or at the end of a series for an observation for a department. This is a little bit different from the global YPI practice, where we usually use carryovers, forward or backward imputations at the beginning or at the end of within observation series. So maybe here what authors could explain is why regression imputation was preferred, and also be a bit more transparent about how many values were imputed using this procedure. And so on. Again, I'm not saying that the carryovers should be used, but maybe to explain why regression imputation was preferred over that. And in terms of the coefficient of variation procedure, I must say that when I was reading the report at the beginning, I was wondering what it actually should mean. So I'm not saying, I think that actually the coefficient of variation procedure for the indicators that are based on household surveys is useful. It should be included, but at the same time, I think that in the report it should be explained a little bit better. For example, whether this procedure was used for every department year estimate based on household survey, whether this included the calculation based on the actual survey data, and because you also say that if the coefficient of variation was larger than 20%, then the value was actually set as missing. So my question is, how were these values then imputed using those two methods that you use to impute the values, or how they were imputed? And of course, as always, one concrete example of the use of the CV procedure, the coefficient of variation procedure, would be really helpful. Outliers, transformations, and calibration. Well, here what came to my mind when reading the report. So I think that the skewness and outliers check and square root transformations are all great. And you also said it in your presentation, Marco, that given the smaller sample, first or 9th percentile truncation was used, but it had limited effects because it basically didn't replace or truncate observation. So my question is why, or maybe you did, I don't know. Did you think about like using maybe the caps at the 5th or 95th percentile, or maybe even use only a method that is called a vinsorization, where you replace clear outliers only, usually up to 5, which I think would fit your case. So maybe that would be better than to stick to the 1st and 99th percentile truncation, which in case of your data set would not really replace any possible outlying values. In terms of PCA validation and robustness, all of these statistics, PCA weights, Cronbach's alpha, KMO values, are reported. What is not reported that much are actually the underlying PCA results. So what I think could be interesting for paper, still having in mind a possible academic paper, would be to include these results maybe in an appendix that would include the eigenvalues of the PCA, the explained variance, or the idea about the dominance of the first component or factor in the PCA. This doesn't need to be included in the report itself, but maybe for possible future academic publication, it should be there. What I think should be included in the report are within component correlation application SPI and YPI does, is that prior using the multivariate statistics, we look at correlations of indicators within components, and normally we don't retain indicators that have negative correlations with other indicators within a component. So again, since I haven't been able to actually decode this from the question, it would be you actually looked at the correlations and whether you found that there were some negative correlations and what you did with those indicators having negative correlations with others. And as I said at the beginning, especially for a paper, at least one robustness check would be recommended, either looking at, for example, the difference between PCA weights and equal weights that you used at the level of dimensions and the index, or maybe the method of aggregation, the compensatory or non-compensatory approaches. So what would be the result or the difference if you used arithmetic average aggregation or geometric average aggregation? But this may be more relevant for a possible paper than for the report itself. And that's basically it. So I included in my review 9 questions. I actually already covered some of them in my presentation, so I will not be reading these, but maybe stop my presentation here and move the floor to a more wider discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your comments. And before continuing, we kindly ask you to fill out the evaluation form for the Applied Research Workshop. The link is available in the Zoom chat. So your comments are very important for the continuous improvement of these workshops. So now we will give the floor back to Marco, maybe to discuss response to the comments. Please, Marco, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Professor Jaromír, for the comments. And I want to thank you mainly for these absolutely precise observations. I think that we are going to calibrate the procedure and maybe go some other implementations, but it's always welcome to have some observations, even considering that you are part from the main source. Okay, so I want to thank you again. Related to the first question that you show it on your presentation, we make this PCA calculation taking into account the 45 points. So we are including these 9 departments and the estimates for the 5 years. We are not including the best and the worst case. And the same for the Cronbach alpha and the KMO. We are just taking into account the observed and calculated values. For the second question, that it was related to the coefficient of variation, yeah, it's like you said, once we calculate the indicator, for example, Oruro in 2021, we have a value and we have to check if this value has a coefficient of variation larger than the 20% established by the statistical institution of our country. And like you said, we treat in case we have a value greater or larger than 20%, we treat this value as a missing value because we don't want to include some indicator that has values that are not statistically representative. So we treat the value as a missing value, and then we develop the methodology with a interpolation with a isolate imputation or a regression imputation. It's going to depend if the value is at the beginning or the end of the series, like the other indicators, or it's an interior gap. The third question, and like you said, we wanted to apply strictly the methodology established by social progress imperative, but we found that making a interpolation imputation in the interior of the series was able to produce better estimations that when we use regression imputations, and the same for the extremes. We don't want it to make some interpolation, but because we are going to need a epolate, okay, so it's an extrapolation, and therefore we wanted to make, like we said, in the case of housing, we have the chance to make these indicators for the 2019, and we say, okay, we don't want to produce this indicator as a imputation for the 2020 because it's going to be a little bit strange, taking into account that it was a COVID year. So we calculate the 2019 year value, and then we applied an interpolation. But if the missing value is at the beginning of the end, we make the estimation, and we found that the regression give us a more reasonable value, taking into account that most of these indicators are into a 0 to 100 threshold because they are a rate or they are a percentage. So we need to make a regression because the imputation, for example, gave us a value of 102. So it's not reasonable because the indicator has a limit of 100. But if we use a fractional response model, we can make this modeling to a 0 and 1 and then transform to 0, 100. That's why we use this technique, but we are going to to make sure that this is very clear into the report. The first observation, well, I think that I already answered it, that it was because we wanted to take advantage of the availability of the household survey for this year. And the next questions, I don't know if we have so much time, but to look into the robustness checks, and we are going to like I said, go and search some other indicators specifically to the environmental quality component because we want to have the values for Oruro and Potosí. And the last one, sorry, Doctora Fernanda, I think that it's very important. Our indicator of university campuses in non-capital municipalities. What is the formula of this indicator? Is that in the numerator we have the total territorial area of a department. And in the denominator, we have all the total number of university campuses. So we treat this indicator as a negative indicator because greater values could mean that it's a lesser percentage coverage of academic or possibility of the young people to access to a specific university campuses. And greater values could be a negative related to the social progress concept. I'm going to explain this better in the report. So as far to this point, these are my responses to your principal questions. So thank you again, Professor Jaromír.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marco. And now we'll open the floor for questions, for comments. Those who would like to ask, you can just activate the microphone, or you can also write these questions in the chat, and we will transmit it to the presenter and to the commenter.
Maybe not a question, but a comment regarding the progress of the report and the progress of the research itself. First of all, I'm Marcela Los Santos. I'm coordinator of the Research Institute. We initially collaborated with this research project from last year on. So first of all, I think you, Marco, managed together with the team of ISEC, of course, to overcome a lot of the difficulties of to get or to build a youth index in a country where the infrastructure of data is really difficult to get. It's not that there is no data, but it's difficult to summarize everything and to put it in order to produce such a coherent report. So I think the youth index is a very coherent now instrument that will allow the people that are working on youth, actually, it will be a very important tool for to measure progress, which is something that we're currently missing in Bolivia, not only in this population, but I would say in many aspects of the development of the country. So just that. I think that's my main comment. Thank you.
Okay. Carlos, you are with your microphone off.
Sorry, Anna, please go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, I would like to add some comments also. First of all, as Marcela Los Santos said, it is important to emphasize and be thankful for the ICC team, especially Marcela Los Santos, Ana Maria Arias, Fernanda. There is a team behind this effort with Marco. Of course, ISEC team here, Carlos, Jean Paul Benavides, and many others that we have been working on this since last year, since August. I would like also to thank Bernardo del Castillo. I think Bernardo is here. I invited him to use the microphone to say something about this project. It is really a challenging project. It has been a challenging project, and we are here. And the most important thing is to have an index that is very transparent in how it is constructed. And this is exactly what we are doing here. And for this, I would like to thank Jaromír for this review, for this very concrete review that will absolutely help us to improve the methodological process and improve the index and also document the process. Only with that we can be able to get to the next step, that will be the analytical document, that we will really analyze the results. But for that, we must have this methodological document, very well reviewed, constructed, and transparent to make the index, this exercise, really useful for policymakers. Because with that, we can see, we can analyze the limits and also what exactly the index says to us in a subnational level. So it is really a challenging construction to build an index that is so composed with so many indicators. So I would like to thank all the researchers that who helped and who are still helping to have these results. This is a collaboration between the ISEC and ICC within the Catholic University. We are very, very proud of this collaboration, and with Save the Children, and also absolutely with the association that the Youth Progress Index Association organization responsible for that. And we have still work to do to finish the index, and after that to analyze it. And also I would like to thank Fundación Aru, Natalie, to open this space with ISEC. This is also a collaboration for more than 10 years that help us not only to improve documents, academic documents, with critical reviews in a safe space, in a very constructive way, and to show good practices of collaboration and a critical collaboration. So all the comments that we received today from Jaromír will be put in practice, and we thank very, very much for them. So that's what I would like to say to complement, and absolutely thank you for Save the Children, who believe on us and is accompanying us in this journey and this adventure.
If we don't have more comments or questions, we can close. Thank you very much, Professor Harmáček. Thank you very much, Marco, and all the institutions that are present and that helped to advance and to generate this index, which I look forward to see the final result. So we deeply appreciate your presence of all you. And with this, we conclude the 4th Applied Research Workshop. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming activities. So we closed with our continued commitment to promoting spaces for analysis, dialogue, and collective construction. We'll see you the next workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and congratulations to the team. It's been a pleasure to review this. Congratulations,
Thank
Marco.
you. Thank you very much, Jaromír. Thank you, Marco. Your presentation was wonderful. The comments were wonderful, very important. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Jaromír.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctora.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon. Good day.